Okay, there we go. Looks like it's working now. Hey again, guys. It's Joel. So, today I'm recording in the morning rather than the evening. Hello, Roland. My kids are here to kind of light a fire into me because last time was really rambly, and I want to be a lot more concise this time and just get everything done. Roland, I'm recording for the guys. Can you skedaddle? Thank you. Go skedaddle and close my door. Alright, thank you. Kids are very well behaved. Anyway, so this time what I want to talk about was the marketing of the game. Oh, my hands are way down there, it looks like. Okay, so I want to talk about the marketing of the game. I want to talk about how we're going to sell it. I want to talk about why I think it'll sell, and just kind of stuff like that. So, the first big thing when you're looking at like going and selling a game is there demand for it? Because I mean, like, everyone knows about the law of supply and demand. That's one of the really big, famous things about economy. You don't sell anything if there's no demand for it. Excuse me. So, is there demand for a really high-powered Wuxi game? In my estimation, yes. The reason I say that is because, like I touched on in the last video, there are games, or there are shows, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Avatar: The Last Airbender, that have, I mean, they've got a big fan following, and there's an overlap between their following and the people that buy role-playing games, and I should know because I am in the fandom of all of those things. I think they're all cool, and I buy role-playing games. So that's basically our demand right there. The people who like the really high-powered, whooshy, kind of gonzo kung fu stuff. It has to have an Eastern flavor. It has to be adaptable to low and high power, and it has to deliver on that whooshy action premise. And I think our system does that, and I think we can market it so that it's clear that it does that. But because we know who our target audience is now, and the people that basically people that watch action anime and people that game, that's a very big overlap in the nerd community, at least here in America. I don't know. Again, I can't speak for any other countries but mine. But from my knowledge of American nerddom being in it, nerds and people that play role-playing games are pretty much one and the same. I don't think I've ever met somebody who role-plays who didn't watch anime, or vice versa. So, I mean, you see guys who do anime and not role-playing games, but they're pretty rare. Anime role-playing is such an overlap, they made a role-playing game specifically about playing animes. It's called Big Eyes Small Mouth. And they've had some redos and reboots, but it's a market. And it's a market that I don't... Like, I've been doing gaming for a while, and the only thing that scratched the that really high-powered kung fu action itch that I've had as a member of both of those demographics has been Weapons of the Gods and Legends of the Wulin, and to some extent Exalted. Unfortunately, Exalted went kind of batty. This isn't a slow thing. Exalted went batty. It was a long, slow fall into madness. But they're not doing what we can now do. So all the disenfranchised people from Exalted opened up too. So what I'm saying is we probably have a pretty substantial market we can throw it to, and we know what the art should look like. Therefore, we know it should be poppy and colorful and have an anime influence. We know the parts of our system that people are going to be interested in. Oh, I can play Dragon Ball Z with this system. We can't say that, one for one, but we could say something like, your favorite action animes, come alive! So yeah, that tells us a lot about how we're going to sell this game, because we know who we're selling it to. So that's the first thing I want to touch on, is the demand, which that's the demand. Okay, so there's two more elements to this. I want to keep this really brief. The first thing is I want to kind of go over the system in very, very small, concrete terms, like not specifically, but I want to concretely describe a couple of core things about it I think are very, very important for both the short-term appeal and the long-term, like the lifetime of the game, and how it's going to, how designing it in the way I'm trying to design it is going to be good for us in a marketing way. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to touch on, and the second thing I'm going to conclude with is I'm going to talk about how we're going to present the game as far as marketing it. So let's move right along. Okay, so the system, there's going to be really kind of two halves to the game. There's going to be the fluff and the crunch. That's the system of a game. Fluff, of course, is story, and crunch is mechanics. I'm a mechanics guy, although I'm not alien to fluff. Mine tends to be a little more vague and a little more brief. Like, I don't do fan fiction. I don't do flabby prose. I'm all about efficiency when it comes to that stuff. So I might not be the best guy to do a fluff angle. But I'm certainly good with mechanics. I know a lot about game theory, I know about math and probability, and I know how games play, and I know a lot about psychology, and I basically have the knowledge and experience to deliver on a good game premise. So what I'm going to be focusing on here is the mechanical side of it, not the fluff side of it. I just want to make that really clear, because we haven't really solidified anything for the fluff yet, and I'm not the main guy on that. I kind of consider David to be the main guy. I think we all just kind of do veto over that. Much like with me and the mechanics, I'm like the main mechanic guy. So this is my mechanic angle. David, I would like to hear from you on the fluff of the game. We're gonna have to hash it out. After you watch this, kind of keep the points in mind as far as when you're writing out fluff, because I really think they should complement each other and interlace, because that's a more satisfying game when they do that. Okay, so the mechanics, the system. There are 4 points to it. I feel it needs to be 4 things, these 4 very important things. It needs to be simple, in other words, easy to learn. It needs to be flexible, so that it can do multiple things. It needs to be adaptable, so it can be changed and modified by those who play it. And it needs to be deep, in other words, it needs to have a strategy that you can learn and gradually come to master. Now, there's a caveat in that last one, the deep. It should not be solvable. One of the things that killed Exalted, really slew it, was that there was a solution to how to play it. There was something called a 2-7 filter, and a perfect defense spam, and they boiled down a gigantic, fascinating, complex game into this really narrow, very not fun thing. And I cannot stress enough that we should not have a solution like that. We don't want a solvable system. We just want one where there are some strategies that are strong, and that mastery of the game is done through that. So, let's start with the first point. Simple. Okay. I don't feel like there need to be more than maybe 2 to 5 pages of core rules. Like, I think they should be cleanly presented. I think they should be easy to digest. And overall, I think they should be, like, the core mechanic needs to be presented as a reference format. I don't think people are going to learn the game by reading just through the core rules straight. I think we should have a part of any given work where we're teaching them the rules. And based on the way I learn and based on my study on how people learn, I think that we should have something kind of akin to the way Dungeons and Dragons did their Redbox, where you kind of have a choose your own adventure. And what it did was it piecemeal introduced the mechanics, just little bit by little bit. And as soon as it introduced one, it would give you something to do with it. It would be what's called iterative. So what we want to do is something like that, I think. I think it could be done as a choose-your-own-adventure, where you're just sort of reading and rolling dice occasionally. But I think we would do something unique if we made it a at-the-table experience for the whole group. Where it's like, okay, you 5 guys don't know anything about your characters yet. Well, through playing this introductory session, we're all going to learn about the mechanics, including me, the GM. And we're just going to learn it as it comes up. And we're going to... And our design would be iterative. They keep doing the same things, because, I mean, the turns are going to look the same. They're going to be rolling their action pool, etc. And that would be a great way to facilitate learning and immediately engage them in playing. So there's not this, like, oh, what do I do? That's a really big barrier to entry on RPGs, and this would be a good way to get everybody kind of on the same page, get everybody comfortable with doing it. So I think that would be the way to go, and to keep it from getting cluttered, to keep too much from being in your mind at once, I think the very most core rules of a system, the action pool, attack and damage, the chakra, the techniques, they should fit on about 5 pages. It should be comfortable, and we should have examples. So, That is what I mean when I say simple. I mean something easy to digest and not a giant volume of stuff. Now, this is distinct. Again, this is distinct from having a big library of options. Um, One of the reasons Exalted was good was that it was a big system, but the actual resolution on most of the main stuff you did was very concise. It was very tight. Uh, like you would just basically roll your d10s and count any of the ones that were 7 or higher. That's a pretty clean mechanic. Where Exalted failed and where the New World of Darkness design, to contrast with it, succeeded is that the resolution mechanics for unique actions were just all over the place in Exalted, and it made it very hard to reference. And like, if you ever see one of the corrected sheets, they're gigantic, and they are packed with tons of little rules that you only use in corner cases. And it was really weird to introduce new characters to this, new players, and build new characters, because there was so much minutia that didn't make a better game. World of Darkness, to contrast, a very sleek resolution mechanic. You almost always did the same thing, where you would take a stat and a skill, roll them, and then count 8 and higher in World of Darkness. And that was the resolution mechanic for them. Their most complex thing was combat. And actually, that's probably the most complex things in a lot of games. It's just the combat section. Again, though, it wasn't super confusing. It was very concise. So, I think having a big library would be appealing, because Exalted is a giant library of charms and options and builds, and so does World of Darkness. World of Darkness has whole different kinds of creatures, werewolves, vampires, what they call Prometheans, which are like Frankenstein's monster. They all have a huge list of powers. There's backgrounds. There's all kinds of neat stuff you can do in those games. But they are add-ons to a very simple core system, and we need to keep that template for ours. So yeah, it needs to be simple and some options. So that's as far as simple. That's the point I want to make with that. Flexible is the next point. Let me see. Now, what I wrote here, and I think this is very true, I'm glad I wrote this down, was that our 4 ideas of setting and character builds and things like that are never going to be equal to the imagination or the tastes of our entire audience. In other words, whenever we're designing this stuff, we got to make sure that we allow people to use it for a lot of things. If they want to strip off the whooshy elements and make it like a Harry Potter game, like one of my playtesters once do, as long as the rules deliver what they're looking for, let them, you know? We don't want to get prima donna about anything about the setting, about what the rules are meant for, anything like that. We want to be flexible with them. We want to be able people to play whatever game they want with our rules. Because even though we have a market we're pushing towards, whoever buys this game, it's up to them what they do with it, you know? Maybe you only have a passing interest in Dragon Ball Z, but you saw our ad banner, and you're like, well, all these things are really cool, and it is very adaptable, and this free document that I'm looking at that tells me all the rules makes me think that I could run this with Harry Potter. I could invest in something with this. That guy gave us $2-3, you know, which we can put to good use. You know, we need art and such like. So, let's see. Now, I also put in, however, that once we stake our territory, which is going to be that kind of Dragon Ball Z demographic, we want to deliver on the structure and what I've been terming the core experience of the game. With a core experience is basically like distilling the essence of Dragon Ball Z or some similar anime into mechanics. So like whatever your character is doing at the table, it sort of feels like something that could happen, and one of the fun, cool things that would happen in Dragon Ball Z. So we need to be really disciplined with making sure that that's what we're going for. That's going to be our sanity check is, okay, after we make the mechanic and we playtest it, did that feel like Dragon Ball Z? Did that feel like Naruto? Did that feel like Avatar: The Last Airbender? If it did, okay, that can stay. If it's like, it sort of felt different, it sort of felt like something else, not really. So we need to make the game, to kind of wrap up both these points together, we need to make the game out of discrete, strong building blocks that can be used to make similar titles for enterprising GMs. That's what I put there. So you might argue that, like, say, Street Fighter, the Capcom fighting game. They had a couple animes. You might argue that you could do that with this game. Okay, fine. I didn't design this game for that. I kind of designed this game to go a little closer towards like Ashura's Wrath. But if you wanted to do Street Fighter with this game, and you were like, well, all I have to do is hack out the stronger powers, and it doesn't break anything, I can still run this game just fine, and I could make sure that you couldn't, I'd streamline chakras like this, and that's not going to shred anything, and like, that would be okay. We need to make sure the rules have enough flex in them where, and I think we've actually already done this, but we need to make sure they have enough flex in them that whenever someone wants to hack our game, it doesn't break. Fate is probably the best system ever on that, but Fate is almost just a hackmaster's guide to hacking hacks. You almost have to make Fate. It's almost like an incomplete game. It's not been to my taste, but I admire what they were able to do with it. The Fractal is really brilliant game design. Anyway, so that's flexible. Now, similarly to flexible, the next point I want to get to is adaptable. Alright, so as per Vic's modular idea that he had, whenever we were first working on Moonlight, as you guys know, Vic proposed an idea where we would have adaptable rules, where they had a very simple version of the rules, and then you basically layer on complexity in discrete chunks. That was brilliant, Vic, and I think we should do that. Now, I'm going to go back to saying that the system should be made out of distinct blocks, which makes what I've heard termed as a plug-and-play system. Essentially, you have action pool, and you have focus, and you have chi, and you have different kinds of techniques, and you have the lore sheets, which we should probably rename. And those are all blocks. And so you're kind of giving GMs a Lego set, even if you give them a complete rule set. And you're saying, okay, here's the instruction manual for assembling a castle. But you have all the Legos. You can make whatever the hell you want. If you want to make a big gray dragon or a spaceship, that's fine. We don't care. Here's how these work, and here's how you do them the way we envisioned. Please feel free to do whatever the hell you want. So that really is that goes along a lot with flexible, with adaptable and flexible. They're both in both of those points. I'm really calling for a design that allows a person who buys the game to do whatever the hell they want with it. I mean, again, we're making it for a particular thing, but we want it to be in discrete, understandable chunks for learning's sake and for hacking's sake. So, before I go on to deep, because I feel like this needs to be brought up, the reason I'm calling for both of those points so strongly, flexibility and adaptability, is to contrast with both Weapons of the Gods and Legends of the Wulin. They were not hacker-friendly. You could make things for them, but you couldn't take things out of them without ruining the broth. Exalted 2nd Edition did that. Exalted 3rd Edition seems to be doing that. For some reason, we've gotten away from hacking, and we need to get back to it, because old-school role-playing games did that, and it greatly enhanced their popularity. Dungeons & Dragons didn't really take off until the publishing of Dungeon and Dragon magazine, which basically were magazines devoted to all the crazy shit you could do with the basic rule set of Dungeons & Dragons. They gave GMs the tools to make the game their game, and to do like weird stuff like Outer Space D&D, and Dune as D&D, which is what Dark Sun is. And until that stuff happened, D&D didn't have enough appeal to really make it on its own. That's when it really started taking off. And that's why I like our model of going and making small bits of this game at a time that can be used for different things. Like, ideally, and I've got a couple of off-the-wall ideas I do want to throw out here. In addition to doing the Tripitaka Monkey King thing, I would like to do a Romance of the Three Kingdom thing, and I'd like to do something like a Water Margin thing, too. In both cases, I'd like to kind of revisit the rules on big units of troops and kind of base the game design somewhere close to the way Dynasty Warriors, that franchise, is made. Because I feel like that's territory we haven't explored. And that would be really interesting. Hey, Roland, you guys doing okay in there? You want to come over here and show everybody how cute you are? Oh, you did. Call Pig over to eat that rice up. We have a dog named Pig. It's not an actual pig. Gave my son some rice. He's a rice fiend. Go figure, right? Anyway, so yeah, I want to do some more war stuff. I'm a war gamer at heart. Alright, Last point I want to get into, and then we'll go into the marketing, is depth. Okay, so let me just see what I got written here. This is a strong balance in the system. Okay, so according to my writing from, I think this is yesterday, actually it might have been the day before. Anyway, there is a strong balance in the base system and a program strategy with the chakras. Let me see. These emergent properties aren't stated in the text, but reveal themselves in play. Okay, so with that, what I was trying to get to there was that we know, like, we've embedded the escalation with the chakras from lower power to higher power throughout, round to round, right there in the core mechanics. We don't say that we've done that anywhere in the text. We let players figure that out as they play. It's going to come as a pleasant surprise, and the reason it's going to be a pleasant surprise and an unpleasant one is because we have anticipated that and designed for it, rather than not seeing our mistakes and having players fall into them, which is what Exalted did, and it killed Exalted. It just really shot a hole in its foot. So, that is what I mean by depth. A deep game is a game that you can play and learn the rules, and then later on your own or through study, you learn the strategy. That is very satisfying. That is, like, a game like that keeps veteran players, and veteran players are people that are willing to invest in new books. Same thing with GMs. We can play outside in a little bit, but right now I'm in the middle of my video, okay? Go watch TV with your brother. Okay, don't. I gave you my answer. Now shoot. Oh, you're being pitiful. I got a 2-year-old here. He's a bit of a drama queen. Anyway, so it's also satisfying for a GM to have something with a lot of depth and strategy, because it means whenever they make bad guys, that they can have different tactics and things they can use. Roland, I'm not going to tell you again. I'm in the middle of this. Now shoo. Yeah, he's really drama queening it right now. I hope this doesn't wreck the video. Anyway, what's one of the things I enjoyed about Legends of the Wulin was that I could make NPCs with, or villains more specifically, with different kinds of builds and different strategies. That was really fun. I really liked that. And there was some complaint that was leveled, not just at Legends of the Wulin and Exalted and similar games, but just, I think, against kind of like non-D&D games in general, that that it's cumbersome to make bad guys out of the same stats you make characters with. I disagree. It means as a game designer, we only have to do the job one time and do it well, and program an escalation to it such as that very powerful characters can produce good combats with multiple weaker characters, which is what a big boss combat should look like. Rather than having to program everything for the players and then individually balance monsters against them, which is what Dungeons & Dragons does. Now, the older editions of Dungeons & Dragons, their idea of balance was more in the playing of the game and less in the mechanical unity of the game. In other words, sometimes you ran away from a combat. That's sort of unheard of nowadays. But you actually are supposed to run away in Dungeons & Dragons. You're supposed to be cautious. You're supposed to use traps to your advantage. That was the original design in Dungeons & Dragons, and so because they didn't have big set-piece combats as their design, they didn't require that kind of mechanical robustness when it came to designing monsters. Monsters were very simple compared to what they look like now. What they look like now is much more sophisticated because each monster is supposed to be its own set-piece combat. We don't have to do that. We are building our whole system around set-piece combats and the cool stuff that happens within them. And so as long as we're building player powers that allow them to access the set-piece cool stuff and the bad guys made of the same thing, I think we'll be alright. We'll need to be careful with our playtesting and be very critical about how we're designing it, but I think it'll work. And that goes into, like, this depth I'm talking about. As people play this game, they're going to learn things about it, and that's what brings people back to it. That's what keeps them interested. And people that are kept interested in a game buy it, and they buy more stuff for it. And they don't complain. And I say that as a person who does that. I happily invested in the 3rd edition of Exalted because I liked Exalted. I knew it needed a mechanical reboot, and I wanted to see it happen. Also, I liked the designers. Shearer and Merck. Those guys, they had a real foreign presence back in the day, and for free, they already had fixed Second Ed. They did their own fix on it, just pro bono. Yeah.
Daddy, here.
This is my work. You're correct.
Daddy, I'll walk down.
Roland, buddy, I'm working right now. Can you go play with the little kitty over here? We also have a new kitten. Anyway, so back to the point about investing. The designers were smart, and they did good work, and they were willing to do work and produce a product in a decent time frame for free. Really, they worked for peanuts even on the actual official manuscript. I loved Exalted, and I was fine with buying it again as long as it worked. And I'm also not one of the guys that really felt betrayed by it. It's not really what I wanted. I think I wanted the good parts that I liked about Second Ed, and none of the bad parts. Here's the problem with Exalted, is that they weren't interconnected in the mechanics anywhere near as much as they were in the setting. That's probably a rant for another day. But I'm okay with the third edition of Exalted. I don't feel it crapped its pants. But, I mean, it's clear a lot of people aren't happy with it. And, well, we're making a game that can kind of cater to guys like me who wanted something different out of Exalted. And I think there's a pretty good chunk of us. So, I wouldn't complain about buying this game. I don't think anyone else will either. Okay, so anything else about depth? I wrote a lot about depth. I'm such a... I go on. I'm boring. Anyway, through a solid understanding of the design principle and a careful use of the design, we make a game with a rich, rewarding strategy, extending its shelf life and leading to greater sales through word of mouth. Okay, I basically already said that. So that's depth. It has to be something with a strategy. That's all. And it's got to be balanced. Okay, final point, because I'm almost on my half an hour time limit here. Presentation. Okay, so keeping all that in mind, here's how I want to do the presentation of the game. The first thing is there's a very important principle of, well, it's not of advertisement, it's actually of food. My friend, Chef Jeremy Lacey, of all people, told me a very interesting thing that one of his teachers told him while he was learning to be a chef, and that is we eat first with our eyes. In other words, our first impression of food that makes us decide if we're going to eat it or not. If it looks pretty and delicious, we're probably going to eat it. That's why chefs, like well-trained chefs, think about presentation as well as taste and robustness. I think a really good chef pretty much does what we do. And we can learn some lessons from that, too. Because when it comes to making food, making a game, it's very much the same experience in a lot of ways. You want there to be a good presentation, so that kind of hooks you into wanting to try and eat it, and good smell, which would be kind of like good word of mouth. It needs to be tasty, and it also needs to be filling and have something satisfying afterwards. You need either to be full, or it has to contribute to the experience of the meal. A good chef knows that, and, well, good game designers should know that, too. So, since our first impression is going to be important, it's our handshake, we want to make certain that it looks really pretty. David, I'm with you on this. I would rather have good art rather than, crummy, cheap art. And I would rather have no art than bad art. Because even if we just have a logo that, say, like Vic and Gerd or someone like that puts together, and that's all we have, I'd rather put that in an eye catch than a crummy piece of art. To give you guys an idea, I think I actually have one of my drawings sitting around here somewhere. Let me see if I got it. Hold on a second. Oh, where are you? That's a terrifying piece of... There we go. Where are you? Is that you? I don't have it anymore. Never mind. Never mind. I can't find it. Anyway, I tried to draw an eye catch for this, and it came out disturbing, to say the least. It kind of looks like... the Joker by way of Bollywood, because I wanted to do like a clearly Indian ethnicity, from India, not Native American, and I wanted him to be like kind of like our sort of Goku character, like kind of like the guy that's out in front on all of our eye catches, and he looks terrifying. Right now, I'm actually talking with a friend of mine who's an artist to see if they will go ahead and sketch me something. Most of the artist friends I have are kind of unreliable, so we'll see. And I'm not paying them in this case. I just want to see if they've got the chops. If something comes of it, I'll show you guys. They're a really good artist. Anyway, but yeah. So point being, we need good art for ad banners. Cover art is way more important than interior art. If we're gonna pay for art, we need to be paying for cover art first. The interior can be bland. the content is going to be what it does on the inside, and what we're doing with the cover art is just catching someone's eye. We're catching their attention. Hey, that looks like a fun game. So, I've got a hook, line, and sinker format for this. Much like with fishing, the hook is going to be pretty art. We need to have an intriguing, what's called a blurb. It's a wonderful name. Basically, it's a brief, punchy description of what we promise to deliver in the game. So, yeah, a little setting expo thing. Something quick, something catchy, something fun to read. That'll be our blurb. Clear promise of system is something I wrote down here. In other words, we need to know very factually what our system does and state it in concrete terms to the audience. It's just bullet points. There is strategic combat. There's high-powered kung fu action. That's a thing we have. Oh, excuse me. We are very specifically trying to emulate action anime, so we should probably mention something like that. Kids. You know, stuff like that. It doesn't even have to be super flattering, as long as it's concrete and honest, and something that we're designing the game to appeal to an audience anyway. We just have to state those things clearly for them. So they're like, okay, well, that's a checklist. I'm okay with that. I don't think that's going to be a huge thing. I think it's necessary to do just so that we have a appearance of being honest, and whenever people actually do start investing in the game, they'll realize, like, hey, look, they said they were going to deliver on this, and they did. I'll give them money. So that's part of the hook. Right now, we have a perfect price. It's free. So pricing is going to be important. We do get to set the price. We have full latitude in that. We pay what you want. As the guys who run Fate say, you do pay what you want and drive through RPG to expand your audience. That's what we're doing with it. I'm not expecting to make any money from it. I'm not expecting to make a red set. If we do, it should immediately go into Roland. That's enough. Stop pulling the kitty's tail. Stop. Well, stop pulling the kitty's tail. You have rice on the table. You made a big mess with it. Well, I will make you a sandwich. Now go. Oh my god. 2 years old, man. That's rough. Anyway, we need to think about pricing whenever we actually make a priced product. That might be in the wake of the Kickstarter. If we actually get popular enough and we have enough downloads to warrant a Kickstarter and it succeeds, we need to start thinking about doing price supplements. There's a lot of ways to go with that, a lot of schools of thought on it. So we'll just go over them and see which one we prefer. Roland. Shh, we're not going to push the button. I'm talking to my friends. Because I'm trying to tell them about the strategy of mine, and we'll push it in a moment. I'm now after my half-an-hour mark. I don't feel too bad. You guys see what I have to deal with. Okay, line. It's after the hook. Just touching briefly on this again, the game system is adaptable, easy to learn as a product, and it has good support. In other words, we're going to keep releasing stuff for it. We're going to be available online for Q&As and errata and things like that. And because we're doing this digitally initially, we have a lot of latitude in doing that. Our audience is going to be online, and we can update the document as we create it. That's a very good feedback loop. We're going to get good feedback from the core people that care enough to leave it, and that's going to modify the experience. Also, along that, feedback-wise, whenever people start making threads about this on RPGNet or wherever they do, I want us to be able to look at those, and for those sort of dual purpose. I want those to both be free advertisements for us, because people are talking about the game, and I also want those to be somewhere where we have the ability to go in and talk to our fans and address the ideas that they have. Mostly because, I mean, we all came from RPGNet. Dave sent out his flyer, and he got us, and he got RJ too. RJ, of course, has left, which is too bad, because RJ is freaking awesome. This isn't really his thing. He's more of a tinkerer. But you're fine, Roland. He is such a drama queen. You don't even know. Anyway, but there's still a talent pool there on RPGNet. There are artists that actually I've been scouting. There are writers, editors, playtesters, people who are willing to improve our product for us, and I'm fine with working with them. Like, we don't have a non-disclosure agreement. We're giving this away for free, so harnessing that is the best thing we can do. Right now, we're all kind of working like that, the free labor. The four of us are going to be the ones profiting from it. Ultimately, whenever money does start coming in from it, it's sort of a slow burn, but it seems reasonable. And we're going to use it to continue making a better product, so that seems ethical to me. And also, people, unless someone volunteers to do this for free, I'm not going to ask them to. I don't think any of us should ever ask someone to work for free. But, I mean, you'd be amazed at the volume of free work that was done for Exalted. Or, I mean, even RJ himself is the one who was in charge of doing the errata and what have you, the kind of rewrite Legends of the Wulin stuff in his Burning, what was it, the Burning Manual? I forget what it's called. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to ever finish the thing. I tried to pick through it. He, like me, is a very dense way of thinking, so, again, this is kind of a story for another time, but another part of the line is going to be that good support, and supporting it is going to mean being online and doing what we do online, which is being friendly and helpful. So, that's our line. So we've got a hook and a line so far, now the sinker. The thing that's going to guarantee long-term sort of survivability of our product, in other words, sales going in through the next couple of years. I would like to do big, sexy books, is what I wrote down here, with tons of options and good production value, which will provide a solid reason to continue to pay for the game, for a little movie. What the hell was I saying there? Anyway, I want to keep the price point as low as we can reasonably cut it, because we don't have a lot of infrastructure to support. Our talent pool, with all of us on board, is actually pretty good. Me, David, Jurg, Victor, like, the four of us actually have a really solid pool of talents, and we already have cut out a percentage which is just going to be us making a profit off of it, and the vast majority of what we're going to make is going to be reinvested, in other words, to pay things that are outside of our talent pool. I think it would be worthwhile for us to continue to acquire skills in the overall creation of a published product, because that means that we're going to have to pay out less and less for that as it goes on. We'll also be able to fatten our resumes, which is always really nice. But when it comes to making the big books, my idea is actually a pretty robust release schedule, and I think we can do it if we really put our heads together and we're disciplined. I would like to do 2 really big books a year. In other words, like, the first year I'd like to do, like, the core book and, like, another big book. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'd love to do another big book. And I'd like to do one free adventure / rules manual thing once every quarter. In other words, once every 3 months. The reason I want to do that is because people are going to see that. They're going to see, oh, hey, the new free thing is out for this game. Cool. And they've got some errata in there, or they've got some new options in there. That's also kind of feeding back into the support. Whenever someone sees that something is ongoing like that, they feel more comfortable in giving their money to that, because they know that they're going to get free support for it. If they buy the core book and just keep it at the core book, that's a fine investment for someone, even if it's like $60 or $70, because you know for a fact that it's a solid, balanced rulebook that'll provide a lot of years of enjoyment, and you also know for a fact that 4 times a year you get a free adventure for it. So that's a great value, and I don't think other companies can really equal that unless they're really big companies. Like, you see Paizo gives out free stuff pretty commonly. What are they called? I'm trying to think of the guys who do War Machine. But the guys who do War Machine, whoever they are, they do a good amount of free stuff. And then, of course, Wizards of the Coast does a lot of free stuff. They are kind of the monolith as far as game, like, role-playing games go, because they have Dungeons and Dragons now. So yeah, that is the hook, line, and sinker policy. That's how I want to present it, and those are the reasons I think people are going to invest in our game. I don't know that any of us stand to make a fortune off of this thing, but I think with all of those things, we can pump out a really high-quality product and still make a little bit of actual profit on the side, which seems like completely reasonable for, like, a few hours of our effort and work per week. It seems about like what if I were going to do a job that was this easy and fun, and they only expected me to work like 5 or 6 hours a week, even if they were only paying me $10, $15 a week, I would definitely do it. So yeah. That is actually all I had to say. I'm about 10 minutes over my mark, which isn't too bad, and I hope you guys have sat through the whole thing, including the interruptions. I'll let you guys get back to your lives, and I hope to talk to you again soon. That doesn't actually turn it off, I just realized. I think this does.